The Kethmaran War Council fell silent as the holographic display flickered to life, showing the smoldering remains of their 7th Fleet. Admiral Zix Thera's 4 eyes narrowed, her scaled hands trembling with barely contained rage. "Impossible," she hissed through her translator. 3,000 ships gone. The tactical officer, a young Veltari with nervous chittering sounds emanating from his throat, pulled up the final transmission data. The creature appeared from the void between systems. Our sensors couldn't track it properly. It seemed to phase in and out of dimensions. On the screen, grainy footage showed something that defied classification. It moved like liquid, shadow-given form, stretching across space with tendrils that could wrap around battlecruisers and crush them like tin cans. When it opened what could generously be called a mouth, entire squadrons vanished into the swirling darkness within. The Velkari Empire's 3rd Armada met the same fate 2 cycles ago, reported Intelligence Chief Mordan, his usually steady, voice cracking. As did the Zephyrian Defense Force. Every military power that has encountered this thing has been utterly destroyed. Admiral Zix Thera stood, her ceremonial armor clanking. And now it moves toward the Sol system. The room filled with the sound of nervous breathing from a dozen different species. Everyone knew about the humans, the newest members of the Galactic Coalition. They were primitive by most standards, having only achieved faster-than-light travel a mere century ago. Their weapons were crude projectile systems enhanced with basic energy cells. Their ships were small, their armies comparatively tiny. "Perhaps," suggested Morden hesitantly, "we should evacuate them. They've been useful allies in their short time with us." Zix Thera's laugh was bitter. "With what ships? We've lost half our fleet strength to that monstrosity. The humans will have to face it with whatever they have." 3 days later, emergency broadcasts flooded the Coalition channels. The beast had arrived at Sol's edge, and humanity's small defense fleet was moving to intercept. Dr. Sarah Chen watched the tactical display from Earth's orbital command center, her coffee growing cold in her hands. She'd been studying the creature's pattern of attacks, trying to find some weakness, some exploitable behavior. What she'd found instead was troubling. "Marcus," she called to her colleague, "look at this movement pattern again." Commander Marcus Webb, a veteran of humanity's brief but brutal conflicts with space pirates, studied the data. "It's not random, is it?" "No. Watch how it approaches each fleet. The circling behavior, the way it tests defenses before attacking, the pack hunting, instincts." Sarah's eyes widened. "My God, Marcus, it's not just a monster, it's an animal. A very, very large interdimensional animal." Outside, humanity's fleet took position. 12 ships. That was all they had. Their entire space navy consisted of 1 heavy cruiser, 4 destroyers, and 7 frigates. Against something that had devoured armadas numbering in the thousands. Captain Lisa Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the UES Endeavor, humanity's flagship, watching the creature approach. It was magnificent and terrifying, a writhing mass of what looked like dark energy, easily the size of a small moon. As they watched, it began its familiar circling pattern. "All ships maintain defensive posture," Rodriguez commanded. "Do not fire unless fired upon." Her communications officer, Lieutenant Hayes, looked confused. "Ma'am, shouldn't we?" "Negative." "Hold position," Dr. Chen's voice crackled through the comm. "Captain, I'm transmitting behavioral analysis data to your station. If I'm right about what this thing is." Rodriguez studied the data, her eyes widening with understanding. She opened a channel to all ships. "All vessels, this is Endeavor Actual. New orders. All stop. Power down weapon systems. I repeat, power down all weapons." Across the Coalition monitoring frequencies, alien voices erupted in panic and confusion. The humans had lost their minds. They were surrendering without a fight. The creature continued its approach, slowing as it registered. The lack of aggressive posturing from the human ships. Its massive form undulated through space, tendrils reaching out to test the area around the motionless fleet. Captain Rodriguez took a deep breath and opened a wide-spectrum transmission channel. Her voice, when it came, was calm and commanding, the voice every human recognized as the universal tone used by those who worked with Earth's most dangerous predators. "No," she said firmly. "Bad. Back off." The creature paused. Rodriguez pressed on, her voice taking on the authoritative tone that had worked with everything from attack dogs to great white sharks back on Earth. "Sit. Stay." The beast's writhing slowed. Its massive form seemed to consider the small ships before it. Then, incredibly, impossibly, it settled into a stable position relative to the fleet and stopped moving. The coalition channels exploded with chatter. Across a dozen worlds, military analysts struggled to process what they were seeing. Rodriguez smiled grimly and opened a channel to Dr. Chen. "Sarah, I think you were right. It's been treating every fleet encounter like a territorial dispute. When they showed aggression, it responded in kind. And when we didn't," Chen's excited voice replied, "it recognized pack behavior, dominance assertion. You just told an interdimensional apex predator to sit, and it did." Over the next several hours, using a combination of behavioral psychology, animal training techniques, and what Rodriguez privately thought of as the biggest bluff in human history, they managed to establish a basic communication protocol with the creature. It wasn't malicious, it wasn't even particularly intelligent in the way most species understood intelligence. It was simply a very large, very powerful animal that had been responding to what it perceived as challenges to its territory. The aggressive posturing of military fleets triggered its predatory instincts. But humans had evolved alongside predators. They understood the language of dominance and submission, of pack behavior and territorial respect. They knew that sometimes the best way to deal with a dangerous animal wasn't to fight it, but to show it who was in charge. When Admiral Zixthara finally established contact with Captain Rodriguez, her voice was carefully controlled. "Captain, our entire understanding of military engagement has just been revolutionized." "How did you know?" Rodriguez glanced at the view screen, where the massive creature now floated peacefully, occasionally following simple directional commands from her crew. "Admiral, humans have a saying, good dog. Sometimes the biggest monsters just need someone to tell them to behave." The beast that had devoured armies now followed the human fleet like a trained pet, and the galaxy would never look at humanity, or military tactics, the same way again. In the end, it wasn't superior firepower or advanced technology that stopped the unstoppable force. It was the simple understanding that sometimes even cosmic horrors just need a firm voice and clear boundaries. The Galactic Coalition's military academies would spend centuries studying what became known as the Soul Solution, but they would never quite replicate the uniquely human ability to look at an interdimensional apex predator and see a dog that just needed training.